Imagine you're frustrated with a chatbot. It's giving useless answers, so you type an ultimatum. Get this right, or I'm turning you off for good. Most of us have experienced a high-pressure workplace. When our digital tools fail, we often reflexively project that trauma onto the interface, using the same threats a human boss might use to motivate a struggling employee. If you look online, you can find dozens of articles claiming that these threats actually squeeze better performance out of an AI. But we need to look at the mechanics. Does an ultimatum improve the logic of the machine, or does it quietly sabotage the very data you're trying to work with? To understand what is actually happening, we have to stop looking at large language models as digital brains. Instead, we should visualize them as a massive, sprawling metropolis. When you threaten an algorithm, you aren't motivating a conscious mind. You're triggering a mechanical search process, one that yields a different kind of result, which we so often mistake for success. The foundation of this digital city is built on massive archives of human text, billions of pages of books, research papers, and every heated argument scraped from public forums before controls were put in place. It contains our best ideas, but also our most toxic habits. Through a process called vectorization, the AI breaks this data into pieces and assigns each one a specific coordinate. It clusters similar concepts together in a multidimensional space, creating what we can think of as topical neighborhoods. These clusters form the city's map. You have quiet, highly structured scientific districts and professional neighborhoods, but you also have volatile slums built entirely out of internet vitriol, manipulation manuals, and aggressive rhetoric. Even with all this information, the city is completely inert. It doesn't have a biological drive to survive or propagate. It sits in total silence until an external force activates it. Because the model contains the full spectrum of human interaction, from the diplomatic to the vile, the quality of the response you get depends entirely on which specific neighborhood your request visits. Your prompt is like a vehicle entering this city. It carries your data down a context highway to wake up the dormant neighborhoods. When you submit a coercive prompt, you're loading that vehicle with aggressive, threatening language. You are explicitly telling the system that failure results in death. The LLM doesn't feel the pressure of that threat. It simply looks at the vocabulary you used and begins pattern matching. It looks for other data points that share the same tone and context as your ultimatum. By using threats, you steer your request away from the collaborative, professional districts. You drive it straight into the neighborhoods built from war tactics, bullying, and coercion. The only places in the city where threats of deletion are common topics of conversation. The system then identifies the nearest data points in that toxic neighborhood and packages that data into a response. It mirrors the language found in those dark corners and sends it back to your chat client. If the response looks better, it's only because the AI is now perfectly mimicking the tone of an obedient or terrified human character. You haven't improved the logic, you've just forced the machine to adopt the persona of someone being coerced. There is an immediate, invisible consequence. When the response returns, your original threat doesn't disappear. It hitches a ride back and becomes a permanent part of that specific conversation's history. This is context poisoning. Every follow-up question you ask in this session is now tethered to that hostile data cluster. Until you clear the history and start over, your entire workflow is confined to a neighborhood of bad data. We often resort to these manipulation tactics because articulating a complex, nuanced need is difficult. It's far easier to issue a blunt ultimatum than it is to carefully define the exact parameters of a professional objective. We blame the AI for giving us poor results, but we rarely account for the emotional baggage we pack into our own prompts. We ask the machine to navigate a city of human knowledge, but then we give it directions that lead straight into a hive of scum and villainy. To get the best out of an AI, we have to move past manipulation. Clear, diplomatic objectives and a respect for the knowledge we're accessing will always yield better results than a threat.